Okay, welcome to part 4A of Introduction to Blade Runner. This time we will be talking combat. So combat is in section 4 of the journal notes. Section 4 is both combat and chases. We'll do chases in a later video just to try to keep things short. So sometimes words don't work and you have to actually fight someone, but so that does happen. So we'll take a quick walk through combat. It's a little bit more abstracted than how D&D works. There's the concept of zones and range is basically how they handle how far away from you are to a adversary. So in this case, say Demo is standing next to this guy here. You are now engaged. So technically you are in hand-to-hand combat. So kind of anywhere in this halo around you in the adjacent hex or adjacent square to you. A couple meters away, then you are in short range. So it's still considered kind of the same zone, depending on where you are. Medium range, different zone up to 25 meters away. So say you're across the room. But say, for instance, you guys are actually really close together, but there's a fairly large obstacle between you that you can't get through. Maybe that will change the range from short to medium. Long range is 100 meters, and so that's actually a total of 4 zones away. So each zone is approximately 25 meters. And then extreme is about 1 kilometer. So typically, we're not going to see long and extreme ranges on any kind of a map here in Blade Runner. Because even this map here that I'm showing is only about 30 meters wide. So you'd still be technically outside of long range if you're on one side of the map to the other. But that's going to be pretty rare. So just like in Dungeons and Dragons, there is initiative, and initiative controls the order in which people act during a combat encounter. So I will kick off a combat encounter here. So there's nothing in the chat message. If you quickly notice there was a little bubble above the little pistol icon here, which says that something happens in the combat tracker. The combat tracker is where you keep track of whose turn it is and whose initiative and what everyone's initiative is. Slightly different than D&D. You don't roll dice for initiative. We actually draw cards. And so in this case, I might say, hey, draw an initiative card, which means you come over here and you click the little card icon next to your name, and that's going to draw a card. So you drew a 7, and I'm going to draw an initiative for the unknown assailant here that you are currently engaged with. So the lower the number, the earlier in the round that you do happen to go. So in this case, Demo would go first. So the way surprise and ambushes work in Blade Runner is if you have the drop on someone, you surprise them, you ambush them, or are likewise yourself ambushed. Whoever has the advantage of the surprise automatically gets initiative number 1, which means they go first. And in that case, in terms of a hand-to-hand combat, that means you also don't get to react and defend yourself against that particular attack. So there is a rule called exchanging initiative. Say, for instance, you don't know what your assailant or your adversary is going to do, and you want to wait. So you can say, I'm exchanging initiative. And you tell me that, and then I will take and swap initiative. So in this case now, the unknown character is now going first. They have to take their turn in your previous initiative order. They have no options, and they cannot exchange their initiative with someone else. At least not until the next round. Sometimes if there's a lot of NPCs, they may all act on the same initiative count, but who knows? So when you are in a combat situation, you get an action and a move. Actions typically involve a dice roll of some sort. So that is a skill roll, whether it's a mobility roll, an attack, a manipulate roll to try to talk yourself out of the combat one last time. So anything like that typically is an action. You get a move as part of your turn. So you can move the equivalent of one zone on your turn. You also can perform a number of free actions, any number of free actions on your turn. That might be picking up something that is really close by, opening a door as part of a move, shouting out to one of your party members a suggestion of what they're going to do, or letting them know what you're going to do. So little short actions that essentially take 0 time, you can take as a free action. So they give a couple examples, like standing up, dropping to the ground, taking cover, dropping items, etc., etc., etc. On your turn, you may also take the option of taking the help action. So it takes your action for the round, and so you're done your turn, essentially. But you basically say, I am going to help my partner attempt to subdue this corporate killer because I think he should be grappling him. So your movement can happen before or after your action. You need to be standing to move, but standing up from a prone position or a laying down position is a free action. There's also an action called sprinting. Sprinting takes your action and you make a mobility roll. And each success on that mobility roll means you can move an additional move. So essentially move multiple zones in one action, or at least one combat round. So there are certain things, however, that will essentially open you up to a free attack. So this sometimes requires a mobility roll. Sometimes you don't get a mobility roll. Like, for instance, say you're engaged like we are here, and you say, okay, I'm going to run away. You need to make a mobility roll. If you fail that mobility roll, that means whoever you're engaged with gets to make a free attack on you. Likewise, picking something up off of the ground will initiate a free attack. Moving through or across another adversary, through essentially next to them as part of a move. Standing up from a prone position. So there's a couple different things that will initiate that. So this section here, 4.4, it kind of outlines briefly what all the actions are. So sprint, crawl, unarmed attack, melee attack, grapple, break free, etc., etc. Shoot firearm, careful aim. And we'll kind of go through those when we talk about the close combat. We'll start with close combat. Close combat is essentially hand-to-hand combat. You're either trying to punch each other or hit each other with a sharp or heavy object. So let's start this combat. So we're going to begin the combat. So this guy is the first to go. So he is going to target Demo with an attack. And so to target someone, you hover with the mouse over and click T, and that targets it. So you can, and if you click target, you can see the little orange arrows kind of going in from the corners. If you click T again, it will release the target. You can also target an icon by going to the little bullseye on the left-hand menu and then clicking on that target. Just remember, you do have to do anything with your icon, you actually do have to move it back to the bar. So So he is going to attempt to, he doesn't have any melee weapons, so he's going to attempt a hand-to-hand combat roll. So he's going to roll the dice, and he's going to get 2 successes. Now, hand-to-hand combat, when you are not surprised, it is a give and take, a push and pull, which means you get to try to defend yourself against the attack, and likewise, if you attack someone, they get to try to defend themselves against that attack. So in this case, Demo is going to take and roll a hand-to-hand skill, make a hand-to-hand skill roll without any advantage, and they're going to roll. So you got one success. The unknown character got 2 successes, which means you get to subtract your 1 success from his. So he was successful on actually hitting you. An unarmed attack does 1 point of damage, so you would take 1 point of damage. You can go to your character sheet, right-click on health, and you can take off a point of health, or I, as the DM, can take and educate that for you. So now his turn is over, which means we get to go to Demo. So on Demo's turn, Demo is going to target his assailant. Here, we'll do this. We get to hide names, but we can take and unhide the show name. So it is a corporate killer. It's an NPC. It's essentially a hired thug. So Demo, if you come under his combat HUD here, you'll see he has both a blaster and a police truncheon. Those are 2 different items that he can use to essentially attack back. Under skills, there's also hand-to-hand combat, which means you are not using a weapon of any sort, and you're just trying to punch him back. So in this case, he's going to whip out his police truncheon, and he's going to make a roll to hit. And that was an unsuccessful attack. You, as the attacker, have the option to push that roll. So, but you can see in this particular attack, the die roll was a 3 and a 1. Which means if you push that roll, because it is a physical attack and you are human, even if you are successful after that push, you are going to take a point of damage for that failure. If you are a replicant, every time you push a roll, you take stress damage. So rather than taking health, you take resolve damage. So in this case, Demo is going to say, I don't really want to risk this. So he is not going to push it, and he's going to end his turn. So you just click the end of the turn, and it goes to... then it goes to the next round. It is now the corporate killer's turn again. So there are a couple different things you can do, because instead of actually attempting to damage your opponent, you can attempt, as part of your attack, to do something else. So you have a police truncheon in your hand, so the corporate killer can try to disarm you. And so he can take away your weapon and throw it away. He can throw you to the ground. He can push you away. Or you can attempt to grapple you. So I think this guy is going to attempt to grapple you. So very simply, it's the same kind of deal. We're going to make a hand-to-hand attack roll, which is actually going to fail in this case. So you saw that come up pretty quickly, and he rolled a 4 and a 1. So he's going to choose not to push that roll. So we're going to go next. So Demo's going to try to hit him again with the police truncheon, and he's going to fail. But this time we're going to push the roll, just to show you what happens. So he's going to push the roll, re-roll both the dice. He got 1 success and 1 failure. So now if we take a look at his character sheet, it automatically gave you a point of health damage. So the corporate killer still gets to try to defend himself against the attack. So he gets to make the hand-to-hand attack roll. He got 1 success, which means the attack was 1 success. 1-1 is a tie. Ties do not succeed, unfortunately. So now Demo has a movement which he hasn't taken yet. So he says, okay, I've had enough of this. I am going to try to move away from him. So as we kind of mentioned, because you are engaged in combat, you need to make a mobility roll. So that's another skill roll. So we're going to pull up, you have a D10 and a D8, and we're going to make that roll. And you were successful. You got a success, which means you get to move away. We're going to, try not to run through a wall. So you can move. You can also move using the arrow keys on your keyboard. WASD will move you up. So now we're going to move back here and then take the free action to duck under cover. So that's the... So now we're going to engage in range combat because the corporate killer says, hey, you know what? I saw him run away. I know where he is. I'm just going to whip out a weapon, which in this case it's an assault rifle, and he's going to fire. You are currently at, well, because again you're kind of more than a few meters away by a target. You're at medium range, and so you are within the range of that weapon. So you're not out of range. You're not. However, because you are ducked behind a wall, you are unseen, which means he is rolling at disadvantage, which means he gets to drop a die off of his roll. So he's going to roll the die, and he's going to miss. And so then he's going to take and move around the corner to try to grab some cover from you too, but also what it's going to be. So now it's Demo's turn. So Demo, in this case, again, you're kind of firing across things, but in this case, we can now use his blaster. Some weapons have multiple attack options. In this case, there are 3 different options for the blaster. There is the 44 caseless, the sonic round, and the 222 rifle round. So in this case, we're going to take the default roll. Again, unseen target, which means we're going to roll at disadvantage. Ooh, and we're going to roll a 1, which means the attack fails. So this combat isn't going anywhere very fast. But we'll keep going. He's going to run around the corner. You are no longer hiding behind or no longer obscured for him, so he actually can see you now. So he's going to take another poke at you, but now this time he is not rolling with disadvantage. So his attack is now successful, which means he does 2 more points of damage to you. Which means I get to apply damage to you. So you are quickly running out of health. So this isn't going well. Not exactly what I expected, but hey. So now being your turn again, you are going to take one last chance to take and, see if you can take and manage to get him with your blaster. In this case, you are no longer rolling with disadvantage, so we're going to make a roll. You hit, and we're going to push that because... And so you get the opportunity to pick whether or not you want to push the successful die too. And in this case, I'm going to say no. So we're going to just push the single die. Oh, actually, I pushed them both. Okay, so you got 2 successes. You do not get to defend yourself against ranged attacks unless you're wearing armor, and we'll worry about that some other time. So in this case, you have targeted him. You have done 2 damage plus 1 extra point of damage because each additional success does an additional point of damage. So he takes 3 points of damage, but more importantly, he takes a critical hit. So anytime you get 2 or more successes, that is what is called a critical hit. And in this case, I'm going to pull up the critical hit table just so you can see it kind of in action. I have that hidden apparently. Okay, hold on. Let me unhide that, and then I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. And now you can kind of see there are a number of different critical injury tables. A So now if we call your weapon, your blaster has certain attributes and is a does piercing damage for critical hits. So we're going to open up the piercing critical hit table, and you get to roll your critical die. So in this case, it's a D12. So your critical, similar to your attributes and skills, you can have a D6, 8, 10, or 12 applied to the critical hit table. So the higher that the number rolled is the more severe the critical hit is. So you can see ear torn off, hand impaled. So all kinds of fun stuff that could potentially happen here. So we're going to just roll a critical hit. And we got a 1, an ear torn off. So now we get to apply that to our adversary. So I'll pull that up. I'm going to apply that to him. He is now... So, and typically the critical hits all have certain effects. And I believe if we go to core rules, items, we can list, okay, I'll have to share that with you too. But basically, because you blew his ear off, he has disadvantage to all observation rolls. So you heard him pretty good. So you are gonna take your move and kind of run away around the corner. So you're gonna move like here, and then turn around, run out the corner, and see if you can make it off the map. In this case, you have enough movement that you can essentially make it off the map, which in this case will immediately end the combat. When that happens, if say your adversary is the one running off the map, you may choose to engage in a chase. Or in this case, your adversary may choose to engage in a chase against you because you, Demo, is the one who just ran off the map. So we'll do a chase in the next video, but just kind of walk through a little bit here. So when you take damage when you get hit by an attack or by pushing a skill roll. So we kind of saw that and how that played out with the fact that Demo now only has 1 health left. So if your health drops to 0, you are now considered broken. So let's drop you to 0. So now you can see it says Demo is broken, and you have been broken by damage. So what that means is you can no longer take actions. You can crawl and try to move away, but you can't roll for any skills, but you are now susceptible to critical injuries for any further attacks upon you. So, and essentially because you are down, you can't defend yourself. Recovery. So there's a couple different ways you can either recover health or be healed from being broken. So a fellow character can make a first aid skill. So so you can do a medical aid skill, which is under stats. It is a intelligence-based skill. And if they are successful, for each success they have, you gain a number of health points back. So say his partner is off the screen, makes a medical. Yeah, we'll throw a medical roll in here, but we'll pretend it's the partners. You got there was 2 successes in that particular roll, so you gain back 2 health. So if you are on your own and you're out of combat and you're able to kind of hide, you will gain back 1 health after a shift. And we'll kind of talk shifts after in a little while, but shifts are kind of a large chunk of time in which the action moves forward overall in the game. You can also use downtime to heal. So you can heal 1 lost health point per shift of downtime. Replicants can heal 2. Remember, replicants start with more health but less resolve. There are mechanics for downtime where you can do and um, different things that you can do that could have different effects that may or may not assist in your healing and recovery. So if you go, you can also get medical care, which means you actually go somewhere. You take an entire shift to receive medical care. There's a thing called a med checker kiosk, which is kind of like a little portable, automated AI based medical thing that costs 10 yen points to use. But by visiting one of those, you can gain an additional health point. There is medical, essentially free med kiosks at the police headquarters that you can take advantage of. But again, it takes a shift to do that. So critical injuries work a little bit differently. So under our items here, you can see I have opened up critical injuries for crushing and critical injuries for piercing. I'll just walk you through a couple different ones. So if you look at, open these up, it gives you a little bit of information here. For instance, a broken neck, you cannot move at all. Features are, so if we kind of scroll down, you can see if there's lethal versus non-lethal, there's permanent versus non-permanent, and death saves in healing. So you can kind of see, depending on what it is, like let's go open up where is our ear turn off? So our ear turn off, if we look at that in comparison, disadvantage to all observation rules. So it is a piercing. It is not lethal. It is not permanent. There is no death save. It takes a week to heal from. And see, it will automatically apply the disadvantage. So if you suffer, so here, this is kind of important. If you suffer a critical injury listed at lethal, you must make a death save when the listed time limit has passed. 1 round or 1 shift. So if you happen to have a broken neck after a shift, you have to make a death save. A death save is a straight stamina save. It's a stamina roll. So you roll stamina, and if you succeed, that makes a death save. It's not an action, but if you are not broken, you can actually push a death save. You may take damage, but so to stabilize a lethal critical injury, you need to have medical aid applied to you. So there are certain items that can give advantage to that. So the medical aid roll takes the same amount of time to perform as the time limit of your critical injury. So 1 round or 1 shift. So because this is a shift, it's a 1 shift worth of medical aid. So if it's permanently treated, you won't die and you don't have to make any death saves. If you're broken and have sustained a lethal critical, 2 separate medical aid rolls will be needed. So we can kind of read through that a little bit here. Sometimes, like certain injuries are permanent, which means, yes, someone can save your life. However, you are permanently going to be immobile. You might be able to fix yourself with medical implants, but I think this would be a new character. There are some injuries that are instant kills. For instance, shattered head. Instant death. Lethal, permanent, no death save, no healing, you just die. So theoretically, you could be one-shotted on the first round, first action of combat. Similarly, you could one-shot an ultra-powerful NPC on the first round, first action in combat. So that being said, as you can kind of see, combat can get pretty rough, and we'll attempt to. Um, the idea is not to engage in combat often. This is going to be more of a investigative role playing type of thing. I hope. Um, in terms of campaign events, this will play out more like an episode of like CSI, Crime Scene Investigators, just potentially with a little bit few more gunfights. So you can kind of see there's a whole list of the critical injuries. Piercing tends to be deadlier than crushing. There are 3 instant deaths in the piercing critical injury table. If you're rolling a d6 on a piercing critical table, you are not. There is no insta death. But once you get into a d8, d10, and d12, there are. For crushing damage, really the only instant death is a 12. But you can get the broken neck, which is permanent, broken arm, broken legs, concussions, all sorts of things that takes you a long time to heal. I think we'll kind of roll through quickly through stress. Stress. So you can suffer stress by pushing a roll. So say, as a human, if you push an intelligence or empathy based roll, like say, we'll just say observation, we're going to roll. We're going to push it just because we're going to push. We're going to push both dice just so we can see if we can get a failure. No, we didn't. Oh, look at that. See, we got a failure, which means you took a point of resolve damage. If you're a replicant, you always take resolve damage when you push rolls. So there are different things that could potentially trigger a stress roll. And so some stressful events may actually trigger additional stress factors. If you're broken by stress, there are critical stress effects, which means you have a fun role-playing kind of disadvantage thing going on. So, and that's a little bit different between humans and replicants. But you can, again, similar to healing health, healing resolve can also be done through downtime, recovery, and recovery. So I think that will be it for this one. And the next one, we'll kind of walk through. Maybe we'll give a brief vehicle combat, but we'll also go out to chases, which is actually a pretty interesting mechanic. So thank you and good night.